We're back for another episode of Bald Guys on Bikes, and we're here today with Laura Wortman, who's a VP at Doylestown Health Foundation. And we're going to have a really good conversation today because this is right at the core of what, all of this.
It brings a lot of stories together. There's a lot of stories that kind of intertwine.
And it's about community, right? Ultimately,
right.
what this podcast is about and what the cycling community is about the community around us. And you've got such Doylestown has got such involvement with the community. And I know, Brian, you've got some stuff there. We got some special stuff that we want to talk about. But welcome, Laura.
Thank you. And I know you know parts of our history that I didn't even know that you shared with me.
I am a geek for the history of Doylestown Health because the story starts with the Village Improvement Association and those group of women that they got together to make an improvement in this community on a whole lot of levels.
Right.
Today we talk about the hospital, but I happen to know the history of VIA in terms of human services, in terms of sanitation in the town, in terms of water treatment, in terms of even in my role in the juvenile court, the foundation of the juvenile court all comes out of the VIA. And what always strikes me about that history was just the passion this group of women had for improving this community. And that's something that you and I, that's where we align, right?
Okay.
The mission of Doylestown Health Foundation talks about proactive involvement in the health of this community,
right,
outside of the four walls of this hospital that we happen to be sitting in.
Yeah.
And you've been such a huge supporter of what we're doing in the shop in terms of what we're doing with the team, which we see as a way of impacting the community, but also a race that we're super passionate about, the Bucks County Classic, that we compete in, and its role in the women's race. Can you talk a little bit about
Sure.
both those things?
Well, what better way to promote the health and wellness of the community by being a partner with Bike Works here and promoting the women's part of the bike race and having a presence there as well. I mean, everybody comes out for the Bike Classic, and it's really important for us to have a presence there, not only in support, but also the women of the VIA are there volunteering. We host events for the community, we raise awareness, and really it's why Doylestown Hospital shifted to Doylestown Health, because it's really about health, and it's health in the community. It's keeping people out of the hospital, but when it comes time that somebody does have to come in, there's already a relationship there. There's already awareness of what we do. There are neighbors, our family, our friends. That's what the community is here, and it's really unique, and it's also the high quality care, which is also unique to a community hospital.
Yeah, and another crazy place where we wind up having this nexus, and clearly it wasn't a story that we planned out, was, Chris Bekos is racing for our team, has this, traumatic thing happen with, having brain cancer, and that whole story that became Mountains We Climb. And then we had the opportunity to show that film at the Doylestown Health Foundation sponsors event. I guess that was last year.
Yeah, it might have been 2 years ago now.
It was 2 years ago.
It was
right?
2 years ago,
Yeah.
and I don't think we've had so much donor engagement since we have had at that event. There were a lot of questions. People were really impressed by his story, and it really brings home, even if it hasn't impacted you, when you see members of your community who have, a healthcare crisis or medical crisis, and to see the connections and to see that point and to see the success story, and that he was so committed to his own well-being, and that he embraced his diagnosis and created an opportunity to prioritize friendships and prioritize community and figure out ways to give back. And that was part of his journey to recovery. And that's truly important in everything that we're doing in the hospital. It is proactively advocating for the health and well-being of our community.
And Chris, obviously I'm in regular contact with him and daily contact with him, but he's out there doing the work. Like, he has shifted the whole focus of his life to positive psychology, but having a positive influence with people who are going through. I always love the way he described it as people who are getting their deck reshuffled and helping them try to turn that experience into something positive and constructive.
Right. And it was inspiring. I know that, at the time, our senior living community, they brought Chris and they brought you,
that was awesome.
To come present it there. And it really is, it's that story of inspiration that people want. There's too many sad things that happen. Yeah. So when you have those stories where people all come together and rally around someone, even if it's not the best outcome, But if just that part of the journey where people are making it better, in addition to the medicine and everything else, it really does make a big difference.
And the reason we're here with you today is actually we're going to talk about a story that happened within the walls, not in the community necessarily, those in the community,
Right.
but it happens within the four walls of this hospital with Haily Bekos and her journey through her diagnosis and her treatment, and then coming out the other side of it, the involvement that Ronald McDonald House had with their family, and the work that Jeff's doing now to promote that.
Yeah. And it's so unique, and it's also, it makes it special. I know you're going to talk with Dr. Linkenheimer, and members of our medical staff, they all do collaborate, and they are looking. It's very patient-centered care, and what might be best for this patient might not be best for the next patient, but they're going to do their best to make sure that the best care is delivered, and if that means transferring it out, they'll transfer it out. But it really is a unique story, and something that I think the entire community can be proud of. Like it's just one aspect that makes Doylestown special.
So the two of you have used two words that I think repeatedly that I think are really important: unique and community. Mm-hmm. And this really is a unique community, not just within the cycling community, but beyond that. What makes it so unique in your film? Or Brian, what do you think? What do you think?
I grew up in a conjoined community. Other than I grew up in Bucks County, but I didn't grow up in Doylestown. And when I moved to Doylestown as a grown up, I could never really put my finger on it. But everywhere I go in this country, or actually in the world, I bump into someone from Doylestown, and there's this immediate connection. And there's a sense that people here are all lifting up this community, that they're all wanting to be involved in the community, that they're all wanting to make this a special place to live. And I encounter that wherever I go.
Yeah, it's definitely the culture. I think people do want to support each other and help each other and find ways to connect. And we were talking earlier about just different events, and you see people where you might not expect to see them, but it's because people are invested in all aspects of the community.
And we see that with how Doylestown Health supports the bike race,
Mm-hmm.
right? Especially the women's bike race, which is hands down probably one of the most exciting parts of the day to watch that race. And I think people do get really excited about it. So it is just a little bit more community.
And I'm excited about I'm excited about that part of it too. Women's cycling needs a boost. And I remember standing on the sidelines of the race many years ago with John Eustace, former race director, and him talking about this racer from Uzbekistan or that racer from Armenia, and thinking to myself, I could really care less about that. I'd love to see a kid from Doylestown. And on the women's side and on the men's side, the number of local athletes that have come through our program and raced on those streets, gone by their own houses, or participated in front of their own community and competed in one of the hardest races in America that you and I know is true, is a really special thing for me.
Right.
And it's not just the race though, because the race is the exciting part of it. But you talk a lot about preventative as well, getting out into the community, and that's something that cycling does a lot as well.
Right, the cycling does that. I think I was just going to say too, look at all the female rock stars that are part of the bike race. So you've got Laura Wortman, you have our Mayor Noni
Best
West.
race director in the country. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
So there are so many strong females lending to this community, and certainly cycling or another sport, it's so important in your health and wellness, and also your just kind of your emotional well-being. It's not just about the physical, but it's all aspects. And obviously, we've been talking about the social well-being too of all this connectedness.
Cycling hasn't transformed us into physical being, especially into physical health.
We're
but
really
it's done great for our
gravity works good for us down here.
Yeah, exactly.
Not so much on uphill, but whenever Brian calls me to go out riding, he doesn't say, "Hey, you want to go ride bikes?" And I tell this to a lot of people: you want to go play bikes.
Oh, that's nice.
And it's just such a great way to think about it for health. And just mental health as well. It's like, let's go play.
Yeah.
Now,
and outside. Let's go play outside.
That's right.
Which is so important.
Yeah.
Well, we'll transition the story to Dr. Linkenheimer. Thank you so much for spending the time and having us here in the building.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it was just a typical night in the emergency department. If I remember correctly, it might have been a Friday night.
So like gunshots and typical in that
we,
sense.
We don't get gunshots.
Okay,
good. It was, basically people coming in not feeling well, chest pain, abdominal pain, fevers, that sort of thing. Haily had been in earlier in the day and had a rather complete workup. She'd been seen for seizures. And typically we do, CAT scans, lab work, and if nothing shows up abnormal, we usually send the patient home for an outpatient EEG, and it's rather routine. But she came back and she was having difficulty walking, and at that point, I'm looking at her workup from earlier in the day, and everything's complete. And now there are a couple things that stick out with you with certain patients. And what I remember, I think Haily was about 13 at the time. It was that she was very interactive with me and very engaging, more so than you would think of from a 13-year-old. Now that could have been her baseline, but I wasn't sure. But the other thing was she really could not walk. So there were a couple things that went through my mind. We think of things like Guillain-Barré, peripheral neuropathy.
Those sound like bad things.
Yeah, Guillain-Barré is an ascending paralysis. It starts, in the lower extremities and goes up, and it's very serious. The peripheral neuropathy would be, why is this patient having peripheral neuropathy? But you got to kind of put that together with why she had a seizure too. So went through the workup, and
what does it take with a workup?
you're doing lab tests and
sort of
getting a
ruling stuff
history. Yeah, and most everything in emergency medicine is based in the history. So you're trying to get a rather complete history of what's gone on, what her past medical history was, and things like that. And then, any recent illnesses or exposures, things like that. And then the physical exam, in her case, would be focused mostly, because she was in good health prior to that, on the neurologic exam. And, one of the things that we're probably a little deficient in is getting people up and walking them. And that seemed to be the problem. And she did have difficulty getting up and walking. Now, checking everything else, I kind of ruled out the other things on the differential. And so now I'm left with a big question mark, what's going on? So the next thing to do, in my mind, and this is, basic emergency medicine, is, completeness in your workup and your histories and things like that, is I did a spinal tap, a lumbar puncture, where, we introduced a needle into her back between her vertebrae and get out spinal fluid to examine, under a microscope and various.
Why spinal fluid, for those of the people that don't know? Is there something special about that?
Yeah, so what you're looking for is it kind of gives you, is there something going on around the brain? Is there an infection? Is there bleeding that's not showing up on the CAT scan, although that's extremely, extremely rare for that to happen. But you're looking to find out, trying to glean more information. And you might not find anything, but it's like you don't want to leave any stone unturned at this point. So, the thing that I remembered I was remarking to Haily was that she didn't bother to get the IV, and when I told her what we were going to do with regards to the IV and to the spinal tap, she was all in, which again is unusual, for anyone.
You and I
For a
don't.
fucking cry.
It doesn't matter
We have
whether
no doubt
it's
already.
it doesn't matter if it's a child, a teenager, an adolescent, or an adult. No one's happy about having that done. But one of the things I do is before I do a spinal tap is I typically sedate people so they're not so aware. And she sailed through the spinal tap, and the fluid did come out clear.
So you're still stumped.
I'm still stumped, and then I sent the fluid off to the lab. And many times the fluid comes out clear, and it's only until they examine it through various tests and microscopically that you find out the answer. And what she had was a large amount of white blood cells. So now we're looking at meningitis or encephalitis. The other thing was there was no bacteria in the fluid. So now you're thinking viral. But you have kind of a change in personality and a patient that can't walk. So next thing I did was I called Children's Hospital down in Philadelphia. And it's always a naming a children's hospital CHOP,
Yeah.
is not a great name for a children's
But
hospital.
we're pretty lucky around this area to have such
The
good.
best hospitals.
I mean, we have some of the best medical
Yes.
professionals and organizations.
Well,
in this area.
and CHOP is, routinely recognized as, if not the best children's hospital in the world, one of the best. And, it's a unique place. When I was a resident, I did my pediatrics rotation down there in the emergency department. And it's a remarkable place with a lot of dedicated, very smart individuals down there. And, we are lucky in this area to have Children's Hospital down there. Anyway, the transfers usually go very smoothly going down to CHOP. They accept everyone. And so we got her down there. And, I figured this is just kind of a routine case of like meningitis and stuff like this. And, it will resolve over the next few days. However, I came in a few days later and, one of the nurses told me, that she was on a ventilator and in a coma. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Right.
What's going through your head at that point?
I don't know what's going on. And one, I count myself and Haily and her parents lucky because, this, looking at the workup of my colleague, it was very complete for what she came in with during the morning. And then when I saw her at night, that was the only thing left for me really to do based on her symptoms and signs and things like that. And she did not look sick. I mean, that's the thing. She did not look sick. And then to find out that, she went from looking pretty well to being on a ventilator and in a coma. I mean, it was like, oh my goodness.
So what ultimately was that diagnosis?
Well, anti-NMDA
I got
receptor.
that on a spelling bee once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a fairly common thing?
No,
What
very
are we
rare.
talking?
It's the case is known as brain on fire,
Okay.
and there's I think it was a New York Post columnist who had it, and she wrote a book, and then subsequently there's a movie, but it's very, very rare. There is a female predominance, and in Haley's case, she was at the lower range of the age group that gets it.
Where'd they get brain on fire from? Is it just things
You do-
firing off?
No, what it is the inflammation.
Okay.
This whole thing is an autoimmune inflammatory disease. It can be, part of the workup is making sure that they don't have a cancerous tumor someplace, because that can be what causes the inflammation. But fortunately, that wasn't.
And what's
the
the
case.
prognosis for somebody that has that particular disorder?
It's not good. There can be permanent disabilities, and it's also they don't have a whole lot of therapy that really works. So it's
Well, I can know the end of the story. The end of the story is that she makes a full recovery. And
Right.
what do you credit that to?
probably the people at CHOP more than anything, and just the supportive care that they gave her. And that's there you hear about tertiary care centers. Well, CHOP is a quaternary center, and they're the best of the best, and very strong clinically, very strong with research, and so if it's a rare disease, and but they have the resources and the people to really go the extra mile that that not everybody's capable of. It's not for a lack of trying, but just doesn't have that capability.
Just that medical collaboration of being able to hand off from a facility like Doylestown on down to CHOP, and having that professionalism of doctors that saying patient first, right?
Right. That's typically what it always is especially in the emergency department. It's always patient first, because you're I mean, the intriguing part to me and the fun part is the fact that you present with all these unknowns and you're the Sherlock Holmes of trying to figure out what's going on. That's what makes it, intellectually stimulating and very rewarding. So what we made the diagnosis, but we got Haily where she needed to be, and that's the first step.
Next level of care.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story.
No, you're welcome.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So finally,
We're here with Jeff. You've been around the cycling community here in Bucks County for a while, yes?
Yeah, about 25, 26 years now.
what was the interest in cycling? How'd you get into this dumb hobby?
Well, years ago, I met Eric Hayden at the Velodrome back in Wisconsin, where I grew up.
Olympian, speed skater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
For those
I
too young to remember.
Yeah. And I just love cycling, and then I was in Europe one time, and I saw a bunch of old guys riding bikes on a Sunday morning, and I'm like, I could do this for others.
And you caught the end here in Doylestown. You caught the end of the Doylestown Wheelman experience, which was like a club that existed from like the 50s.
Amazing club
Right.
of guys, and then it led into meeting a bunch of guys and girls in the community that we've just become great friends. And so I never would have met most of these people in my business world. And I've just met some wonderful people, including you two guys.
So and
I
that's where things really fall.
I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, no, yeah. He said we were wonderful people.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. I get that a lot.
Let's make sure I heard that again.
Yeah.
And really, we had just opened the shop in Doylestown,
Mhm.
right? We had just opened Bike Works in 2011. Was 12 was when we moved down to the Foster's location, and really, the whole thing with Haily happens right after we moved there.
Right.
And Fran, my business partner, right away was like, "Hey, we have to get involved with what's going on with this." And we were, involved with the Hope for Haily project that went on. But what I wanted to ask you about specifically, and the reason why we're here today, is the support and everything you experienced through the Ronald McDonald House. Tell us about the Ronald McDonald House. Tell us their mission.
Well, it's just an amazing organization, and there's a couple things that are really important to me. Is that the very first house started here in Philadelphia back in 1974, and that through this crazy partnership between CHOP, the Philadelphia Eagles, and McDonald's, and it's grown to now 390 houses across 62 countries, helping millions of people every year.
What do they do? Explain.
And so it really, like for us, we were thrown into this, and just out of nowhere, we're in the hospital with Haily.
Right.
And then they were saying, well, you're going to be here for a long time. And we were in the hospital for 12 to 16 hours a day. Well, it was too hard to come back home every night. And so what they do is provide a home away from home. So anything and everything that you need on a daily basis, they provide. So it's laundry services, it's 3 meals a day, it's a warm, comfortable bed. It's the security and the stability that when you're dealing with a sick child, you don't want to think about anything else, but you want to make sure that you're taken care of and living a tough life, right? Because you've got a sick child, but they take care of everything.
How many Ronald McDonald houses are located throughout the country? Do you have any idea?
Well, it's 390 across the world, and I
World.
think it's
Okay.
something like 215 in the U.S.
Okay.
And then they've got a combination of houses and then rooms in the hospital
Yep.
and other family rooms. So,
Okay.
providing snacks and food and comfort and all sorts of things throughout.
And I know for a long time that this has been, you have repeatedly told me about the importance of the Ronald McDonald House, how important it was to you in this story. Tell us while we're here today.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Well, so the exciting thing is that this October 19th is the 50th anniversary of the very first Ronald McDonald House. So for us, it really it's important to us because they help us and they help so many families that I wanted to give back to them and to raise awareness and volunteerism and money for the houses across the country and the world. And so I'm going to do a 4,600-mile bike ride starting in Irvine, California on July 29th and winding up here and around October 12th to the 15th
Okay.
to help celebrate the 50th anniversary of this amazing charity.
On a bicycle.
On a bicycle.
Oh, wow.
On a bicycle.
Okay.
4,600 miles.
4,600 miles.
How many Ronald McDonald houses are you going to visit?
I'm going to stop at 26 houses across the way. And at every stop, we've got the media that's going to be following us. They want to do stories on our family story.
Yep.
But then they also want to share other family stories and let the world know what these houses do and how they help people.
And how can people get involved? How can they support your ride, support the Ronald McDonald House? What kind of involvement are you looking for?
Sure. So we've launched onedadsmission.org, and so you can learn about Haily's story. You can learn about the ride. There's a donation page, but more importantly, get involved with your local Ronald McDonald House chapter. So bring a group of folks down, cook dinners, volunteer, rake leaves, make the beds, clean the rooms. I mean, these houses are amazing. They run on a lot of volunteers. There's in-kind donations that they need because when you think about kids and families coming in, they need healthy snacks, and they need food and they need every comfort. I mean, everything that you need at home,
Right.
you need at the Ronald McDonald House.
And one more time, how do people find your give the website again?
onedadsmission.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being
Thanks,
with us.
guys.
Thanks
I
for your time.
appreciate it.
And this is Haily.
Really the star of the show. Yeah, the person we've been talking about the entire time. This all started when you were how old? This whole thing
13
happened.
years old.
And you're how old now?
24. Just turned 24 last week.
And what do you
Happy birthday.
yeah, and fully recovered from all of this. Went on to go to school where?
I went to Temple University and majored in advertising.
And what are you doing with yourself today?
I'm a marketing manager for a nonprofit called College Settlement.
And what's the college settlement? I know all about the college settlement camp. What
You
are
do.
I do. What does the college settlement camp do?
So we're a summer camp and we work with underprivileged youth in Philadelphia.
And have a bike program.
And have a bike program. We teach the kids how to bike. We teach them how to swim. We do arts and crafts and just have a really fun summer.
Our friends at Suburban Cycling Unlimited, we're just doing some equipment procurement and some fundraising for the bike camp at College Settlement Camp. So, and I know all about that and participated in that. Yeah.
Well, we
What else do
appreciate
you want us to know about what you're doing these days?
Just working like crazy, having fun.
You bought a bike a long time ago.
Bought a bike a long
works.
time ago.
I haven't seen it in for service.
I know. It's
How
great.
is the bike
That's
okay?
why. It's great.
How,
Hanging in his garage.
it's hanging in the garage. Is it possible we might get it out this summer?
Maybe I'll bring it to the beach.
All right, sounds
There
good.
we go.
I'll send you some videos.
And your dad's doing a pretty big mission.
Very, very big mission. I give him a lot of props.
Nice.
You're not riding along next to him on the bike.
Maybe
you got a
towards
bike
the
works.
end I'll act like I did the whole thing.
Okay, all right. Thanks for playing along. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for showing
Yes.
everybody you're doing awesome.
Yes.
Thanks for telling everybody your story.
Anytime.